Her ex was beating her in the alley? Hell's Angel showed up and taught him a lesson. The dinner rush had ended, leaving only the familiar hum of the refrigerator and the occasional clink of dishes as Mia wiped down the last table. Sunrise Diner wasn't much, but the worn vinyl booths and the perpetual smell of coffee had become her sanctuary over the past 8 months. "That's the last of them," Mia said, tucking a strand of brown hair behind her ear. She straightened, arching her back to work out the knots that had formed during her shift. Her feet ached, but it was an honest ache, the kind that came from work she'd chosen for herself. Doris looked up from the register, her lined face softening with a smile. At 62, she moved a bit slower than she used to, but her sharp eyes missed nothing. "You did good tonight, honey. That table of truckers left you a nice tip." Mia nodded, patting the small wad of bills in her apron pocket. "Rent money. And maybe even enough left over for that community college application fee." She kept her voice casual, but couldn't quite hide the flicker of pride. "Education looks good on you," Doris said, closing the register drawer with a practiced push of her hip. "Your mama would have been real proud seeing you make these plans." A familiar ache bloomed in Mia's chest at the mention of her mother. 3 years gone, and sometimes the grief still felt fresh. "I hope so," she murmured, busying herself with straightening the salt and pepper shakers. Doris walked over, her orthopedic shoes squeaking slightly on the linoleum. "I know so. Lillian Carter raised a fighter." Mia smiled, despite herself. "I don't know about that." "Well, I do." Doris rested a gentle hand on Mia's shoulder. "Takes guts to start over from scratch. Not everybody does it." Mia felt her cheeks warm. She wasn't used to praise, not after years with Evan, where every accomplishment was somehow twisted, diminished. She cleared her throat and changed the subject. "You heading home soon?" "Just finishing up these receipts. You go on and take that trash out so we can lock up." Mia nodded, grateful for the simple task. She tied off the large black garbage bag and hoisted it from the bin. The routine tasks of closing up shop had become comforting, predictable in a way her life hadn't been for a long time. "You know," Doris said, her eyes fixed on the paperwork before her, "that apartment above the bookstore is opening up next month. Might be a good move for you." Mia paused, the trash bag dangling from her hand. "How'd you know I was looking?" Doris shrugged. "You've been circling those rental ads for weeks. And that place you're in now." "It's fine," Mia said quickly. They both knew it wasn't. The studio apartment she'd found in a rush after leaving Evan had water damage in one corner and neighbors who fought loudly at all hours. But it was hers, the first place that belonged to her alone. "Just saying," Doris continued. "Carol, who owns the bookstore, is a friend of mine. Rent's reasonable, and it's right in town, walking distance to here and the community college." Mia nodded slowly, allowing herself to consider it. "Maybe I'll ask about it tomorrow." "Good girl," Doris said. "Now get that trash out before it starts leaking on my clean floor." Mia pushed through the back door into the alley behind the diner. The night air felt good on her skin after hours in the warm kitchen. She inhaled deeply, tasting the hint of coming rain. Small victories, she reminded herself. That's what her counselor at the Women's Center always said. Count the small victories. Today's victories, a full shift completed, good tips, and maybe, just maybe, a lead on a better apartment. 8 months ago, she wouldn't have believed any of it possible. Mia heaved the trash bag toward the dumpster, her mind already turning to tomorrow. She'd check on that apartment, pick up an extra shift if Tina needed coverage, maybe even treat herself to a new notebook for the classes she hoped to start. She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice the figure stepping out from the shadows until he moved into the pool of yellow light cast by the diner's back door. Mia froze, the empty trash bag slipping from suddenly numb fingers. Evan stood there, blocking her path back to the door, his familiar smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Mia." Evan's voice slid through the darkness like ice water. Been a while. Mia's throat. Her eyes darted toward the diner door, so close, yet impossible to reach with him standing in the way. What are you doing here? She fought to keep her voice steady, hating the slight tremor that betrayed her. Evan took a step closer, hands open at his sides in a gesture that might have looked harmless to anyone else. But Mia knew better. She'd seen those same hands go from gentle to brutal in seconds. I've been looking for you, he said, his tone softening. You disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation. He shook his head, looking wounded. Do you know? Mia took a careful step backward, her back pressing against the rough brick wall of the diner. Please leave, Evan. We don't have anything to talk about. His expression shifted, the mask of hurt sliding away to reveal something harder beneath. 8 months together, and suddenly we have nothing to talk about? He laughed, a short, ugly sound. That's not how relationships work, Mia. You don't get to just walk away. Yes, I do, Mia said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. That's exactly what I get to do. Evan's eyes narrowed. You're not thinking straight. Never have, really. Always needed me to guide you. His voice dropped to a whisper. Remember how lost you were after your mom died? Who was there for you then? The mention of her mother sent a flash of anger through Mia. Don't you dare use her to manipulate me. Manipulate? Evan's expression darkened. Is that what your new friends have been telling you? That I manipulated you? His hand shot out, gripping her upper arm with bruising force. I loved you. I took care of you when nobody else would. Mia tried to pull away, but his finger. You're hurting me. I'm trying to make you understand. His grip tightened further. You think you can just throw away everything we built? Move to some shabby apartment, wait tables instead of coming home where you belong? Fear fluttered in Mia's chest, but she pushed through it. This isn't my home. And you're not my future. Evan's face twisted. I found your letter, you know, the one you left. I can't live like this anymore. Like what, Mia? Like someone who was loved? Protected? Given everything? Given everything except a choice, Mia said. Something dangerous flashed in Evan's eyes. He released her arm only to slam his palm against the wall beside her head, making her flinch. You had choices. You chose to be ungrateful. You chose to listen to whoever filled your head with all this independence garbage. His voice rose. You chose to abandon me. I chose to save myself, Mia countered, her heart hammering against her ribs. Please, just go. It's over. It's over when I say it's over. Evan leaned in closer, his breath hot on her face. You think I haven't noticed? You think I don't know about this pathetic little job? This sad excuse for a life you've built? A chill ran down Mia's spine. You've been following me? Someone has to look out for you. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if his stalking was an act of devotion. You're making a mistake, Mia. But I'm willing to forgive you. Come home. No. The word came out stronger than she expected. Evan's expression hardened. No? His hand moved from the wall to grip her chin, forcing her to look at him. After everything I've done for you, that's your answer? Mia tried to turn. You don't get to tell me what to do, he hissed. His fingers dug into her skin. You belong with me. You belong to me. I don't belong to anyone, Mia said, summoning every ounce of courage she had left. The change was instant. Rage swept across Evan's features like a storm. His hand moved from her chin to her throat, always so stubborn, always needing to learn the hard way. Mia clawed at his fingers, struggling to breathe. Stop. The blow came without warning. Evan's open hand cracking across her face with enough force to snap her head to the side. Pain exploded along. She tasted blood. In the ringing silence that followed, a new sound emerged from the distance. the low, steady rumble of a motorcycle engine growing closer. The motorcycle engine grew louder, headlights sweeping across the alley as it turned the corner. Evan's grip loosened slightly as he glanced toward the light. A large black motorcycle rolled to a stop. The rider cut the engine, plunging the alley back into near silence. He swung his leg over the bike with a fluid motion that spoke of years of practice. The man stood tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders beneath a worn leather vest. Patches marked him as a member of the Hells Angels. His face was weathered, lined with experience rather than just age, framed by salt and pepper hair pulled back in a short ponytail. His boots made little sound as he approached, stopping a few feet away. He didn't rush, didn't shout, just studied the scene with calm, assessing eyes. "Let her go," he said. His voice was low, almost gentle, but carried an unmistakable weight. Evan sneered, though his hand fell away from Mia's face. "Mind your own business, old man." "Ex-girlfriend," Mia corrected, her voice shaking slightly as she touched her stinging cheek. The biker's gaze never left Evan's face. Seems the lady's made her position clear. "The lady doesn't know what she wants," Evan spat, glancing between Mia and the newcomer. "Who the hell are you, anyway?" "Name's Ray." He took a single step forward, placing himself deliberately between Mia and Evan. He didn't flex or posture. His presence alone filled the space. "And this ends tonight." Evan laughed, but the sound held no humor. "What are you, her bodyguard? Her new boyfriend?" "Neither. Just someone who doesn't like seeing women get hit." "She fell," Evan said quickly. "We were talking, and she got clumsy. Tell him, Mia." Ray didn't turn to look at her, keeping his attention fixed on Evan. "Don't think she needs to explain the mark on her face." Evan's expression darkened. "Look, this is none of your business. She belongs with me. She knows it too, just being stubborn. Nobody belongs to anybody," Ray said. His tone remained calm, conversational even, but something dangerous flickered beneath the surface. "That's not how it works." Evans squared his shoulders, trying to match Ray's imposing presence. "You don't know anything about us. About her." "I know enough." Ray tilted his head slightly. "I know you should leave. Now." "Or what?" Evan challenged, though he took half a step back. "You gonna beat me up? That would look real good for a man your age, assaulting someone for having a conversation with his girlfriend." Ray didn't rise to the bait. "Haven't touched you. Don't plan to." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Unless you make that necessary." Something in his gaze darted past Ray to Mia, then back to the biker. The calculation was visible on his face, weighing his options, measuring the risk. "This isn't over," Evan finally said, pointing at Mia. "We're going to finish our talk when you don't have your guard dog around." Ray shifted slightly, blocking Evan's view of Mia entirely. "Sounds like a threat." "It's a promise," Evan snapped. But he was already backing away. "Mia knows I don't give up on people I care about." "Caring doesn't leave bruises," Ray replied evenly. With a final glare, he turned and walked quickly down the alley, disappearing around the corner. The tension in the air lingered even after he was gone. Ray waited a full minute, listening to ensure Evan truly left, before finally turning to face Mia. "You okay?" he asked. Mia stood straighter, pulling her jacket tighter around herself. "I'm fine." Ray nodded, his eyes taking in the redness blooming on her cheek. "Should put some ice on that." "I said, I'm fine," Mia repeated, her voice firmer. "I didn't need help. I had it under control." "He's all talk," Mia continued, though her hands were still trembling slightly. "I can handle Evan. Been doing it long enough." "Never said you couldn't," Ray replied. Mia pushed away from the wall, straightening her uniform. "Thanks for stepping in. But I don't need a savior. I don't need anyone." Ray took a step back, giving her space. "Fair enough." Without another word, he turned and walked back to his motorcycle. He didn't try to convince her otherwise, didn't offer unwanted advice or protection. He simply accepted her words at face value. Mia watched as he swung his leg over the bike and started the engine. The rumble filled the alley once more as Ray pulled away, disappearing into the night as suddenly as he had appeared. Mia stood in the alley for a long moment after Ray disappeared, her fingers gently touching the tender spot on her cheek. The night air felt suddenly colder. She took several deep breaths, willing her hands to stop shaking. "Get it together," she whispered to herself. She smoothed down her uniform, ran a hand through her hair, and headed back inside through the kitchen door. The diner was nearly empty now, just one elderly couple lingering over pie and coffee in the corner booth. Mia headed straight for the bathroom, pushing the door open with more force than necessary. The fluorescent lighting was harsh and unforgiving. In the mirror, her cheek showed a faint redness that would likely darken into a bruise by morning. Mia dampened a paper towel with cold water and pressed it against her skin, wincing slightly. "Nothing new," she murmured, though her reflection showed eyes bright with unshed tears. The bathroom door creaked open. Doris poked her head in, her lined face immediately creasing with concern. "You've been gone a while, honey. Everything okay with the trash?" Mia turned away quickly, crumpling the paper towel. "Fine. Just taking a minute." Doris stepped fully into the bathroom, letting the door swing shut behind her. She'd been working at the diner longer than Mia had been alive, and not much got past her watchful eyes. "What happened to your face?" she asked quietly. "Nothing. I'm fine." Mia tossed the paper towel into the bin and attempted a casual smile. "Just ran into someone I used to know." Doris crossed her arms. "That someone wouldn't happen to be that boy who used to wait for you after shifts? The one you broke up with?" Mia's smile faltered. "It's not a big deal, Doris. Really?" "Honey, I've been around long enough to know when someone's been hit." Doris's voice was gentle but firm. "Did he do that to you?" Mia's throat tightened. She stared at the speckled tile floor, unable to meet the older woman's eyes. "I handled it," she finally said. "All by yourself?" Doris asked skeptically. Mia hesitated, then sighed. "Someone stepped in." Doris's eyebrows shot up. "Yeah, big guy, leather vest. Hell's Angels. He just appeared." Mia shook her head slightly. "Made Evan leave without even touching him?" Doris's expression softened. "Well, sometimes angels wear leather instead of wings." Mia gave a short, humorless laugh.
"I didn't need rescuing, Doris. I can take care of myself."
"Course you can," Doris agreed, but her eyes remained concerned. "Still, might not hurt to let the police know Evan's bothering you again." "They won't now." Doris sighed heavily. "At least let me drive you home tonight. I'm fine walking. It's not far." "Mia, please, Doris." Mia's voice cracked slightly. I need some air, some space to think." Doris studied her face, then nodded reluctantly. "All right. But you text me when you get home, you hear? And you come straight to my place if he shows up again." "I will," Mia promised, though they both knew she probably wouldn't. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Mia moved mechanically through her closing duties, barely registering the customers who trickled out as closing time approached. Doris kept casting worried glances her way, but didn't push further. Finally, at just past midnight, Mia hung up her apron and grabbed her bag from the staff room. "You sure about that walk?" Doris asked one last time, keys jingling in her hand. "Positive," Mia said, forcing a smile. "The air will do me good." The night was quiet as Mia headed down the sidewalk, street lights casting pools of yellow light at regular intervals. Her apartment was 15 minutes away on foot, a walk she usually enjoyed, even late at night. Tonight, though, every shadow made her tense. She replayed the confrontation with Evan over and over in her mind. his fingers digging into her arm, the switch from pleading to rage in his eyes, the shock of his palm against her face. She'd left him 6 months ago, after 2 years of increasingly controlling behavior. Tonight was the first time he'd actually hit her, but the threat had always been there, simmering beneath his charm. Then there was the biker Ray. His calm, measured the way he'd positioned himself between them without fanfare or dramatics. "This ends tonight," he'd said, as if it were that simple, as if his presence alone could change anything. And yet it had. Evan had backed down. For tonight, at least. Mia's fingers trailed across her cheek again. The spot still stung, a reminder that Evan's control was slipping. He'd always been careful before, controlling in ways that left no visible marks. Tonight had been different, more desperate, more dangerous. She quickened her pace, suddenly eager to reach the safety. Tomorrow she would figure out what to do. Tomorrow she would be stronger. Tonight she just wanted to lock her door and try to forget the look in Evan's eyes when he promised this wasn't over. And maybe, though she wouldn't admit it even to herself, she wanted to remember the strange sense of safety she'd felt, however briefly, when Ray had stood between her and harm. Mia woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of her apartment. For a moment she lay still, confused by the dull ache in her face. Then last night's events crashed back into her memory. Evan in the alley, his hand striking her cheek, the rumble of a motorcycle, the quiet biker who had intervened. She touched her face gingerly. A small bruise had formed, just as she'd expected. Nothing makeup couldn't hide, but the sight of it in her bathroom mirror made her stomach twist. "Great," she muttered, leaning closer to examine the discoloration. "Just great." After a quick shower, Mia applied foundation carefully, covering the mark until it was barely visible. She dressed quickly in jeans and a sweater. Her shift didn't start until noon, and grabbed her bag. A glance at her phone showed 3 missed calls from Evan. She deleted the notifications without listening to his messages. Outside, the morning was crisp and clear. Mia headed for her old Honda, parked at the curb. She needed to stop at the grocery store before work, and her right front tire had been low on air for days. She'd been meaning to fill it up, but somehow never found the time. Approaching her car, Mia slowed, then stopped completely. The tire that had been nearly flat yesterday now looked perfectly inflated. She knelt down to inspect it closer, running her hand over the rubber. Not only was it filled with air, but it was clearly brand new, the treads sharp and unworn. "What the?" she murmured, standing up and looking around the empty street. Nobody was in sight. No note on her windshield. Nothing to explain who had replaced her tire or why. A chill ran down her spine. Had Evan done this? Was it some kind of strange apology, or worse, a reminder that he knew where she lived? But that didn't make sense. Evan wasn't the type to do something helpful anonymously. He would have made sure she knew it was him, used it as leverage. Another possibility flickered through her mind. The biker, Ray. But how would he know where she lived? And why would he bother? Mia stood for a long moment, keys clutched tightly in her hand, before finally unlocking her car and sliding into the driver's seat. The new tire bothered her all the way to the grocery store, like an itch she couldn't scratch. Someone was watching out for her, and she wasn't sure if she should feel grateful or afraid. Tejum, to diner, was busy when Mia arrived for her shift, sliding into work mode despite her lingering unease. Doris was already there, eyeing her critically as Mia tied her apron around her waist.
"You sleep okay?"
the older woman asked, her gaze lingering on Mia's cheek where the bruise lay hidden beneath makeup.
"Fine,"
Mia answered, grabbing her order pad.
"Something weird happened, though. Someone put a new tire on my car overnight."
Doris raised her eyebrows.
"Secret admirer?"
Mia shook her head.
"No idea."
"But unsettling or not, you needed that tire fixed," Doris pointed out practically. "Table 6 needs coffee." The afternoon rush kept Mia too busy to dwell on mysterious tire changes or ex-boyfriends. She moved between tables with practiced efficiency, smiling at regulars, refilling coffee cups, clearing plates. Only occasionally did her hand drift up to touch her concealed bruise, an unconscious reminder of what had happened. It was nearly 8 when her shift ended. The diner had quieted, just a few customers lingering over dinner. Mia hung up her apron and said goodnight to Doris, who made her promise again to be careful walking home. Outside, the evening air was cool against her skin. Mia stood for a moment under the diner's neon sign, taking a deep breath before starting toward her car parked on the side street. That's when she saw him. Across the street, partially shadowed beneath a streetlight, sat a motorcycle. And on it, the unmistakable silhouette of Ray leather vest over broad shoulders, head turned in her direction. He wasn't making any attempts to hide. He was simply watching. Their eyes met across the distance. Mia felt rooted to the spot, uncertain whether to approach him or pretend she hadn't noticed. Before she could decide, Ray nodded once. A small, deliberate gesture. Then he started his motorcycle, the engine rumbling to life in the quiet street. Without another glance, he pulled away from the curb and rode off into the night, the sound of his bike fading until silence returned. Mia stood motionless, staring at the empty space where he had been. Somehow, she knew with absolute certainty who had fixed her tire. The morning brought no sign of Ray, but Mia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Not in a threatening way, more like the awareness of a guardian angel hovering just out of sight. As she walked to work, she found herself glancing over her shoulder, searching for a leather vest or the glint of chrome from a motorcycle. The diner was busy with the breakfast crowd. Mia tied her apron and fell into the familiar rhythm of taking orders and delivering plates of pancakes and eggs. The bruise on her face had faded enough that she needed less makeup to cover it, but the memory of Evan's hand striking her remained sharp. "You seem jumpy today," Doris commented as they passed each other behind the counter. "Everything okay?" "I'm fine," Mia said automatically. She hesitated, then added, "That biker from the other night, have you seen him around before?" Doris shrugged. "The big guy with the beard?" "Yeah, he's been coming in for coffee now and then. Doesn't talk much. Leaves good tips, though." "Did he ever mention knowing my mom?" Mia asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Doris gave her a curious look. "Your mom?" "No, honey." "Why would he?" "No reason," Mia mumbled, embarrassed. "Just wondering." The lunch rush came and went. Mia stepped outside for a quick break, leaning against the brick wall of the diner and closing her eyes. The spring air felt good on her face after hours in the steamy kitchen. When she opened her eyes, she noticed a man lingering near the alley entrance. He was watching the diner door with unusual interest, hands stuffed in the pockets of his worn jacket. Something about his posture, the way he shifted his weight, the darting glances, made Mia's skin prickle with unease. He didn't look like one of their regular customers. Mia was about to head back inside when the distinctive rumble of a motorcycle caught her attention. Ray's bike rolled slowly down the street, coming to a stop near the suspicious man. No words were exchanged that Mia could hear. Ray simply sat there, engine idling, staring at the man with steady intensity. The stranger met Ray's gaze for a brief moment, then quickly looked away. He muttered something, kicked at the ground, and walked off in the opposite direction. Ray watched him go, then glanced toward Mia. Their eyes met. He gave that same small nod from the night before, then drove away without a word. Mia stood frozen, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. Had Ray been following her? Or had he somehow known that man was trouble? Either way, his presence had cleared a potential threat without any confrontation. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of coffee refills and food orders, but Mia's mind kept returning to Ray and his. By closing time, an uneasy gratitude had hardened into determination.
I'll lock up, she told Doris. You go on home.
After the older woman left, Mia finished wiping down the counters and counting the register. She turned off the main lights, leaving only the soft glow of the exit sign. Through the front windows, the street looked empty and peaceful. But Mia knew better. She could feel it. He was out there somewhere, keeping watch. Instead of heading toward her car, Mia walked deliberately to the middle of the street and stopped. She turned in a slow circle, scanning the shadows and parked vehicles. "I know you're there," she called, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. "We need to talk." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then came the soft rumble of a motorcycle engine starting up. From a side street half a block away, Ray emerged on his bike, moving toward her at little more than walking pace. He stopped a few feet away, cutting the engine. In the sudden quiet, Mia could hear her own breathing. "Why are you following me?" she demanded, crossing her arms over her chest. Ray's expression remained calm, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, at being confronted so directly. "Not following," he said, his voice low and gravelly from lack of use. "Watching." "That's the same thing," Mia shot back. "No." Ray shook his head slightly. "It's not." Mia stepped closer, emboldened by frustration. "You fixed my tire. You scared off that guy today." "Why? What do you want from me?" The night air hung between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Tonight, she wouldn't walk away without answers. Mia stood her ground, the glow from the streetlight casting long shadows across the empty parking lot. Ray sat motionless on his motorcycle, his weathered face partially hidden beneath his beard. Neither spoke for several moments, each sizing up the other in the quiet night. "I'm not leaving until you tell me what's going on," Mia finally said, pulling her jacket tighter against the cool evening breeze. "I don't need a bodyguard. I can take care of myself." Ray shifted slightly, his large hands resting on the handlebars of his bike. "Never said you couldn't. Then why are you always around?" "Fixing my tire, scaring off strangers. It's weird. Are you some kind of stalker?" She tried to keep her voice firm, but a slight tremor betrayed her unease. The corner of Ray's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "No, ma'am." "Then what?" Mia pressed, exasperated by his short answers. "Why me?" Ray sighed and swung his leg over the motorcycle, standing up to his full height. Even in the dim light, the patches on his leather vest were visible, the unmistakable insignia of the Hells. Up close, Mia could see the deep lines around his eyes and the gray streaks in his beard that made him look older than his years. "Your mother," he said simply. "Lillian Carter." The name hit Mia like a physical blow. She took an involuntary step backward. "You knew my mom?" Ray nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Knew her well. She helped me once, when nobody else would." "When?" Mia asked, her anger momentarily forgotten. "How?" Ray leaned against his bike, seeming to choose his words carefully. 8 years ago. Couldn't find work anywhere. Not with my record and these colors." He gestured to his vest. "Your mom managed that little bookstore downtown back then." "Pages and Chapters," Mia said softly, remembering the small shop her mother had run until her illness. "Yeah." "I went in looking for a book on motorcycle repair. She saw me browsing, talked to me like a normal person, not like an ex-con or a biker." Ray's voice remained quiet, but Mia could hear the respect in it. "When I mentioned I couldn't find work, she offered me a job on the spot. Stocking shelves, fixing things around the store." Mia stared at him, trying to reconcile this story with the mother she had known. It sounded like her. Lillian had always believed in second chances, but she had never mentioned a biker employee. "She gave me back something I'd lost," Ray continued. "Dignity, trust. Helped me get an apartment too, vouched for me with the landlord." "She never told me about you," Mia said, her voice small. "No reason she should have. I moved on after 6 months, got work as a mechanic, but I never forgot what she did." Ray's eyes darkened slightly.
When I heard she was sick, I came back. Too late to say goodbye.
But not too late to look out for her daughter. Mia felt tears stinging her eyes. Her mother had been gone for almost 2 years now, and the grief still felt fresh some days.
So what, you're paying back a debt by following me around?
Not following, Ray corrected again. Watching. There's a difference.
And what's that?
Following means I want something from you. Watching means I want to make sure nothing happens to you. His voice remained matter-of-fact, without sentimentality. Your mom did that for me when nobody else would. The least I can do is make sure her doll... Mia wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling cold despite her jacket.
I didn't ask for your protection.
No, you didn't, Ray agreed. And I won't force it on you. Say the word, and you won't see me again. The sincerity in his voice caught Mia off guard. She studied his face, trying to find deceit or ulterior motives, but saw only honest conviction. Still, the idea of this stranger inserting himself into her life because of a debt to her mother felt strange and invasive.
I need to think,
she said finally, taking a step back. Ray nodded once, understanding in his eyes. Fair enough. Mia turned and walked toward her car, her mind racing with questions she hadn't thought to ask. The revelation that her mother had quietly changed this man's life had been important enough to him that he'd appoint himself her guardian years later, left her feeling both comforted and confused. Her mother had always been generous, but there was clearly more to the story than Ray had shared. More to this connection that now, unexpectedly, extended to her. Sunlight filtered through Mia's thin curtains, casting warm patches across her bedroom floor. She sat on the edge of her bed, turning her mother's silver locket over and over in her hands. The familiar weight of it was comforting as she tried to make sense of last night's revelation.
Mom knew a Hell's Angel,
she whispered to herself, still struggling to believe it. Her mother, Lillian Carter, had always been kind to everyone. That much was true. She never judged people by appearances and believed everyone deserved second chances. But Mia had never known the full extent of her mother's quiet generosity until now. Mia opened the locket, gazing at the tiny photo inside her mother smiling, her eyes crinkling at the corners. The picture had been taken before the cancer, when Lillian's face was still full and her smile effortless.
Why didn't you ever tell me about him?
Mia asked the photograph, knowing no answer would come. With a sigh, she fastened the locket around her neck and stood up. Her reflection in the mirror showed the fading bruise on her cheekbone from Evan's strike. The sight of it made her stomach clench. 2 years with him had taught her to recognize the patterns, the explosions of violence, followed by desperate apologies, followed by peace that never lasted. She touched the bruise gently. Not again, she promised herself. The kitchen was quiet as Mia made her coffee. Her small apartment wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with outdated appliances and squeaky floors. But it was hers. After leaving Evan, she'd been determined to create a space that belonged only to her, even if it meant working double shifts at the diner to afford it. As she sipped her coffee, her thoughts returned to... The gruff biker didn't seem like someone her mother would have befriended, but then again, Lillian had always seen beyond the surface. If she had trusted Ray enough to help him rebuild his life, there must have been something worthwhile in him. Still doesn't mean I need his protection, Mia muttered. She pulled her waitress uniform from the closet and changed quickly. Working the morning shift meant being at the diner by 6, and the ancient wall clock already showed 5030. As she gathered her things, she paused by the small bookshelf in her living room. Among the paperbacks was a photo album she rarely opened these days. Too many memories, too much grief. On impulse, she pulled it out and flipped through until she found photos of her mother's bookstore. Pages and Chapters had been a cozy little place with mismatched chairs and shelves that reached the ceiling. Mia scanned the photos, wondering if any of them might show Ray in the background, but none did. 8 years ago, she said to herself. That would have been right after Mia left for college. The year she'd met Evan and slowly lost touch with home. Maybe that's why she'd never. By the time she'd moved back to take care of her sick mother, the biker was long gone. Mia closed the album with a sharp snap. It didn't matter. Whatever debt Ray thought he owed her mother, Mia hadn't asked for his help. She'd survived on her own this long. She didn't need a guardian angel now. She grabbed her keys and headed out, locking her apartment door behind her. The early morning air was crisp, promising a beautiful day ahead. As she walked to her car, Mia glanced around the parking lot, half expecting to see Ray watching from the shadows. But there was no sign of him or his motorcycle. The drive to the diner was short, the streets still mostly empty at this hour. Mia parked in her usual spot behind the building, nodding to the cook who was taking a smoke break by the back door.
"Morning, Cal," she called.
"Hey, Mia," he answered, crushing his cigarette under his boot. "Someone left something for you. It's on the counter." Curious, Mia hurried inside. On the counter. Curious, Mia hurried inside. On the counter near the register was a thick manila envelope with her name written across it in unfamiliar handwriting. No returner dropped it off personally. With a sense of unease, Mia opened the envelope and pulled out several official-looking documents. Her blood ran cold as she read the first page, a legal notice naming her as defendant in a case filed by Evan Briggs. He was claiming she had stolen property from him, damaged his car, and was making false accusations that threatened his reputation. The papers trembled in her hands. This was Evan's newest tactic, using the legal system to force her back into his life. To control her. To punish her for leaving.
"You okay, honey?"
Doris asked, coming up beside her. Mia couldn't answer. The room seemed to tilt around her as the full impact hit. Evan wasn't going to stop. The confrontation in the alley had just been the beginning. The sunset painted the sky, orange and pink as Mia left the diner, her shoulders heavy with worry. The manila envelope felt like it weighed 100 pounds in her bag. All day, she'd moved through her shift like a robot, smiling at customers, refilling coffee cups, taking orders, while her mind raced with fears about Evan's legal threats. She spotted the motorcycle first, parked under the streetlight at the far end of the lot. Ray sat on a bench nearby, his weathered leather jacket catching the last golden rays of sunlight. His large frame seemed somehow less intimidating in the fading light, more human. Mia hesitated. She hadn't planned to tell anyone about the papers, but seeing Ray there, steady and calm like always, made something shift inside her. Maybe he would know what to do. After all, he'd dealt with the legal system before. Her footsteps were soft on the pavement as she approached. Ray looked up, his expression unchanging as he nodded a simple greeting. "You waiting for someone?" she asked, though she already knew the answer.
"Just making sure things stay quiet around here,"
he replied, his deep voice as level as ever. Mia sat down on the bench, leaving enough space between them to feel comfortable. For a minute, they just sat in silence, watching the sky darken.
"Evan's taking me to court,"
she finally said, pulling the envelope from her bag. "He claims I stole from him, damaged his property. He's lying, but—" she trailed off, staring at the papers in her hands. Ray's face remained impassive, but something in his eyes hardened.
"Can I see those?"
he asked. Mia handed him the documents. As he read through them, his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. When he finished, he carefully returned the papers to the envelope.
"What am I supposed to do?"
Mia asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "I can't afford a lawyer. I barely make ends meet as it is." Ray was quiet for a moment, considering. "There's a legal aid office downtown," he finally said. "They help people who can't pay for lawyers." "And you think they'll believe me over him?" Mia's bitter laugh surprised even herself. "Evan's family has money. He works at his dad's investment firm. I'm a waitress who lives in a one-bedroom apartment. Truth matters more than money," Ray said simply. Mia shook her head. "That's not how the world works." "Sometimes it does, if you've got proof." Proof of what? That I didn't steal his things? How do I prove something didn't happen? Ray turned slightly to face her. You said he's lying. What's the truth? Mia took a deep breath. When I left him, I only took what was mine. My clothes, my books, a few dishes my mom had given me. He's claiming I took an She paused, then added quietly. He's also saying I keyed his car out of spite. But I would never do that. Would anyone know what you took when you left? Someone who helped you move? Mia thought about it. My friend Tara. She helped me pack. And I have receipts for some of the things he's saying I stole from him, things I bought myself. Ray nodded, as if confirming something he already knew. That's where you start. So you think I should just fight him? On my own? Mia couldn't keep the disappointment from her voice. Part of her had hoped Ray would offer more direct help, maybe talk to Evan again, scare him off for good. I think, Ray said carefully, that you're stronger than you believe. But what if I lose? What if he wins and I have to pay him money I don't have? What if you win? Ray interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. Mia fell silent, surprised by the question. Your mother never let fear stop her, Ray continued. When everyone said I was just a criminal who'd end up back in prison, she believed differently. And she was right. The mention of her mother, I'm not her, she whispered. No, Ray agreed. You're you, and that's enough. Mia stared at the envelope in her hands, frustration and uncertainty warring inside her. She'd wanted a solution, a way out, not a pep talk about believing in herself. But something in Ray's quiet confidence made her pause. She thought about how he'd stepped in when Evan attacked her, not with violence, but with a calm certainty that commanded respect. Maybe there was something to learn there. So you think I should go to legal aid? Start gathering evidence? I think you should decide what you want to do, Ray answered, and then do it with everything you've got. It wasn't the answer she'd hoped for, but as she looked at the steady resolve in Ray's eyes, Mia felt something shift inside her. Not quite confidence yet, but the beginnings of it. Maybe standing up for herself wasn't just about the moment in the alley. Maybe it was about every moment after, too. The legal aid office was a small brick building wedged between a laundromat and a convenience store. Mia stood outside, clutching her folder of documents, watching people come and go. Every few seconds, she checked her watch. She was 15 minutes early for her appointment. Just go in, she whispered to herself, squaring her shoulders. The waiting room smelled like old coffee and paper. A tired-looking woman sat behind a desk, typing rapidly on an ancient computer. Plastic chairs lined the walls, most of them empty except for an elderly man reading a newspaper and a young mother with a sleeping toddler. Can I help you? The receptionist asked without looking up. I have an appointment at 9, Mia said. Mia Carter. The woman nodded toward the chairs. Have a seat. Fill this out. She handed Mia a clipboard with several forms. Mia sat down, her pen hovering over the first question. Nature of legal issue. She hesitated, then wrote, false accusations from ex-boyfriend. The words looked stark on the page. 20 minutes later, a door opened, and a woman with curly gray hair and kind eyes appeared. Mia, I'm Patricia Hernandez. Patricia's office was small but organized, with colorful file folders stacked neatly on shelves. She gestured for Mia to sit in the chair across from her desk. So, Patricia said, scanning the intake form, you're being sued by an ex-boyfriend? Mia nodded, pulling out Evan's legal papers with shaking hands. He says I stole from him and damaged his car when I moved out. But I didn't. Patricia read through the documents carefully, her expression giving nothing away. When she finished, she removed her reading glasses and looked directly at Mia. Has your ex been physically abusive in the past? The question caught Mia off guard. Yes, she admitted quietly. But I never reported it. Did anyone? Mia thought about Doris, who had noticed bruises more than once, and Tara, who had urged her to leave Evan for months before she finally did.
Yes, she said. A few people.
Patricia nodded, making notes.
And when you left, did anyone help you move your belongings?
My friend Tara. She was there the whole time. Good. She'll be an important witness. Patricia leaned forward. Mia, what your ex is doing is called litigation abuse. It's a way to maintain control over you through the legal system. It happens more often than you might think. Mia's throat tightened. We fight back, Patricia said simply. We'll file a response to his claims, documenting what really happened. We'll get statements from your witnesses, and we'll look into whether there's a basis for a counterclaim or restraining order, especially given the recent incident in the alley.
How did you know about that?
Mia asked, startled. Patricia gestured to the intake form.
You mentioned it here.
Oh. Mia had forgotten she'd written that down. I didn't report that to the police either.
It's not too late,
Patricia said gently. The more documentation we have of his pattern of behavior, the stronger our case. For the next hour, they went through everything step by step. Patricia explained the legal process, the timeline, what evidence they would need to gather. She didn't sugarcoat anything. The process would be stressful, and Evan might escalate before backing down.
But you're not alone in this,
Patricia assured her.
That's why we're here.
When they finished, Patricia walked Mia to the door.
One more thing,
she said. Document everything from now on, every call, text, or encounter with him. And don't engage with him directly if you can avoid it. Mia nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by how much lay ahead.
Thank you,
she said. I wasn't sure anyone would believe me. Patricia smiled.
I've been doing this work for 25 years. I know what these situations look like.
Outside, the midday sun felt startlingly bright. Mia checked her phone. 2 hours had passed. She had just enough time to grab lunch before her afternoon shift started. Walking toward the diner, Mia felt drained but somehow lighter. For months, she'd carried the weight of Evan's abuse alone, trying to just move on and forget. Now everything was out in the open, named, documented, witnessed. It was exhausting, but also strangely freeing. As she pushed open the diner door, Doris looked up from behind the counter. Well? She asked, eyebrows raised.
I did it,
Mia said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice.
I'm fighting back.
The evening shift ended with a thunderstorm. Rain pounded against the diner's windows as Mia wiped down the last table. Outside, the parking lot had emptied except for her old Honda and a familiar motorcycle parked under the awning. Weather's turning nasty, Doris commented, counting the register. You want me to wait until you're in your car?
I'll be fine,
Mia said, hanging up her apron. It's just water. She grabbed her umbrella from behind the door and stepped outside. The rain drummed against the fabric as she made her way toward her car. A figure leaned against the wall near the entrance, protected from the downpour. Rough night? Ray asked. His leather jacket glistened with raindrops. Mia paused, umbrella tilted against the wind. Not particularly, just long. Heard you went to legal aid today. She narrowed her eyes.
How did you know that?
Small town, he said with a shrug. And I know Patricia Hernandez. She's good. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a rumble of thunder.
You shouldn't be on that bike in this weather,
Mia said. Ray gestured toward the diner. Was hoping to grab some coffee first. Wait it out a bit. Mia hesitated, then nodded. She hadn't eaten dinner yet anyway. Back inside, Doris raised her eyebrows but said nothing, as Mia and Ray settled into a booth by the window. She brought coffee without being asked, and took Mia's order for a grilled cheese sandwich.
Nothing for me,
Ray said. When Doris left, silence stretched between them. Mia wrapped her hands around the warm mug. So, she finally said, are you going to tell me what to do about Evan? Ray shook his head. Not my place. Then why are you here? He took a sip of coffee before answering. Because sometimes knowing how to stay safe isn't the same as being told what to do. Mia's sandwich arrived, and she took a bite, considering his words. What's the difference? Control, Ray said simply. I'm not here to take over your life or make decisions for you, but I've been around people like your ex. I know how they think. Mia set her sandwich down, suddenly interested. And how do they think? They look for weaknesses, patterns, chances to catch you off guard. Ray's voice remained even, matter of fact. They want you scared because scared people make mistakes. The diner was empty now, except for them. Doris had retreated to the kitchen. So what am I supposed to do? Mia asked. I can't just hide forever. Don't hide, just be smart. Ray traced a finger around the rim of his mug. Change up your routine. Drive different routes home. Park in well-lit areas. Keep your phone charged. These weren't the dramatic pronouncements she'd expected. Just practical, straightforward advice. Let people know where you are, he continued. Not just me, friends, co-workers. I don't have many of those left, Mia admitted. Evan didn't like my friends. Ray nodded, unsurprised. Outside, the rain had softened to a steady patter. Lightning still flickered occasionally, but the storm was moving on. What about the court stuff? Mia asked. Patricia says he's using the legal system to control me. She's right, Ray said. But you've got something he doesn't. What's that? The truth. Ray's eyes met hers. Just keep telling it. Don't let him twist your words or make you doubt yourself. Something about the simplicity of his advice made sense to Mia. He wasn't offering grand gestures or promising to fix everything. Just clear. Your mother used to say that strength isn't about never needing help, Ray said quietly. It's about knowing when to accept it without giving away your power. Mia felt a lump form in her throat at the mention of her mother. He really did know her well. Ray nodded, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. She was a wise woman. The rain had stopped completely now. Mia finished her sandwich and pushed the plate away. I should head home, she said, reaching for her purse. Ray didn't try to stop her or insist on following. He simply nodded and stood up. Think about what I said. Not because I'm telling you what to do, but because it might help. At the door, Mia paused and looked back at him. Thank you, she said, for the advice. Your choice whether to take it, he answered. Mia walked to her car alone, the night air cool and fresh after the storm. As she drove home, she realized she was taking a different route without even thinking about it. One of Ray's suggestions, already becoming habit. She still didn't fully understand this strange connection between her mother and the quiet Hell's Angel. But for the first time, she was beginning to trust that his help came without strings, and that accepting it didn't mean surrendering her independence. Morning light streamed through the blinds as Mia stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She took a deep breath and began speaking to her reflection. My name is Mia Carter. I'm here because... She faltered, then shook her head and started again. I'm here because Evan Briggs has been harassing me since our relationship ended. The words felt stiff, rehearsed. Mia sighed and leaned against the sink. Patricia from Legal Aid had suggested practicing what she'd say in court, but everything sounded wrong. Too formal, too emotional, never quite right. Her phone alarm beeped. Time for work. She'd have to practice more later. The diner buzzed with the usual morning crowd. Mia moved between tables, pouring coffee and taking orders with practiced efficiency. On the surface, everything looked normal. Inside, her mind kept drifting to the upcoming court date. Order up. Jerry called from the kitchen. Mia balanced 3. The young mother smiled up at her. Thank you, she said. Everything okay? You seem a little distracted today. I'm fine, Mia replied automatically. Then, remembering Ray's words about isolation, she added, just preparing for something important next week. Well,
Good luck with whatever it is, the woman said kindly.
During her break, Mia sat in the back office with her notebook open. Patricia had suggested writing down key points. Dates, specific incidents, how she felt. Facts that would help the judge understand. She tapped her pen against the... How could she explain years of slow, creeping control? The way Evan's anger would build like a summer storm. How she'd learned to read tiny shifts in his expression, his voice. You on break? Doris poked her head in. Got a minute? Mia nodded, closing her notebook. Doris settled into the chair across from her. Look, I don't mean to pry, but I've been where you are. Mia looked up, surprised. What do you mean? My first husband. 15 years of walking on eggshells. Doris pushed up her sleeve, revealing a faint scar. Sometimes it got physical. I didn't know, Mia said softly. Not something I advertise. Doris shrugged. But I've seen the way you flinch when someone moves too fast. And that biker who keeps an eye on you? He's not the problem, is he? Mia shook her head. When you tell your story, Doris said, don't overthink it. Just speak your truth. The real stuff, how it felt, what you feared, that's what matters. Back on the floor, Mia felt something shift inside her. Doris's words echoed as she served customers. During the afternoon lull, she retreated to the break room and tried again, this time speaking from the heart rather than rehearsing lines. Evan made me feel trapped, she said quietly to the empty room. At first, it was little things, checking my phone, questioning where I'd been. Then it got worse. The words came easier now, flowing naturally. Not perfect or polished, but honest. By the time her shift ended, Mia felt drained but somehow lighter. The sky had turned deep purple as she stepped outside. Ray's motorcycle was parked across the street. She walked over, no longer surprised by his presence. Busy day? He asked. Long one, she replied. I've been practicing what to say in court. Ray nodded toward the diner. Got time for coffee? They settled into what was becoming their usual booth. Doris brought 2 mugs without being asked, giving Mia a subtle nod of encouragement before leaving them alone. I'm scared, Mia admitted after her first sip. Not of seeing Evan. Well, that too. But mostly of freezing up. Of not being believed. Ray listened. She continued, What if I can't explain it right? So much of it sounds small when you say it out loud, but living it was... She searched for words. Like drowning slowly, Ray finished. Mia looked up, surprised. Yes, exactly like that. Courts can be tough, Ray acknowledged, but remember, you're not on trial. He is. It doesn't feel that way. Mia wrapped her hands around the warm mug. I keep thinking about everything I could have done differently, why I didn't leave sooner. Don't do that to yourself, Ray said. Mia nodded, feeling tears prick behind her eyes. I was so sure I could fix things, that if I just tried harder, was more careful. She shook her head. Stupid, right? Human, Ray corrected. We all want to believe in second chances. The following evening arrived with a gentle rain. Mia sat by the window of her small apartment, watching droplets race down the glass. Her court preparations lay scattered across the coffee table. Legal papers, notes from Patricia, and a half-written statement. A familiar rumble of a motorcycle engine drew her attention. Ray pulled up under the streetlight, his leather jacket glistening with rain. He hadn't come to her apartment before. Their meetings had always been at the diner or by chance on the street. Mia hesitated, then went to the door. By the time she opened it, Ray stood on the landing, rainwater dripping from his beard. Everything okay? She asked. He nodded. Just checking in. Bad night to be out. Do you want to come in? The words surprised her as much as him. Ray stepped inside, removing his wet jacket. His presence filled the small space. Not threatening, but substantial. He stood awkwardly until Mia gestured toward the couch.
Coffee?
She offered.
Thanks.
While Mia busied herself in the kitchen, Ray studied the legal papers on the table. When she returned with 2 steaming mugs, he quickly looked away.
It's okay,
she said.
I'm not hiding anything.
They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the rain tapping against the windows.
I wanted to make sure you're holding up,
Ray finally said.
Court's getting closer. I'm nervous, but I'll manage.
Mia sipped her coffee.
I've been thinking about what you said about...
Ray's eyes, usually so steady, flickered away. He set down his mug. I didn't always believe in them, he said quietly. What changed? Lillian, your mother. He paused, rubbing his palm across his jeans. And before that, someone else. Mia waited, sensing something important beneath his hesitation. I had a sister, Ray continued. Amy. Younger than me by 6 years. His voice, normally so controlled, held a slight tremor. Mia had never heard him speak this way. She got involved with a guy when I was away doing a stint for a ball. Ray stared into his coffee, told her to leave him. She wouldn't listen. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the roof. Things got worse. She'd show up with bruises, always with some excuse. I threatened him once, thought that would fix it. A bitter smile crossed Ray's face. Just made him smarter about where he left marks. Mia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. What happened? I kept my distance. Figured she'd come around when she was ready. Ray's fingers tightened around his mug. Then one night, she called. He fell silent for so long that Mia thought he might not continue. I was angry, told her I'd come in the morning, that I was tired of her going back to him every time. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. By morning, she was in the hospital. 3 days later, she was gone.
Ray, I'm so sorry,
Mia said softly. He shook his head.
The point is, I failed her. I put my pride ahead of her safety. That wasn't your fault, Mia insisted. Maybe not all of it, but some.
Ray looked up, meeting her eyes directly.
After that, I went down a dark road. That's where I met your mother.
She never mentioned you, Mia said. She visited as part of some church program, talked to me like a human when no one else would. Ray's expression softened. When I got out, she gave me work fixing up her house. Didn't ask questions, didn't judge. Mia could picture it clearly, her mother's unfailing kindness, her belief in people. So when I saw you in that alley, Ray continued, it wasn't just about repaying a debt. It was about not failing again. The rain had slowed to a gentle patter. Mia looked at Ray. Not the intimidating biker who had scared off Evan, not the mysterious protector who appeared when needed. Just a man carrying his own pain, trying to make something right. We're both trying to fix broken pieces, aren't we? She said. Ray nodded, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. Some breaks never heal completely, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. The following morning arrived with clear skies, a stark contrast to the previous night's rain. Mia woke before her alarm, Ray's story still echoing in her mind. For the first time in weeks, she didn't immediately check her windows or listen for unfamiliar sounds outside her door. Instead, she focused on getting ready for her appointment. Patricia, the counselor at the Women's Resource Center, had squeezed her in for an early session. The center was a 20-minute bus ride away, housed in a small brick building with a blue door and potted plants in the windows. Mia had been there twice before, but had always found reasons to cancel follow-up appointments. Today felt different. The waiting room was empty except for an older woman at the front desk, who greeted Mia with a warm smile. Patricia will be with you in just a moment, honey. Mia sat on a worn but comfortable couch, leafing through a magazine without really seeing the pages. Her conversation with Ray had unlocked something, a willingness to look at her own story more directly. Mia? Come on in.
Patricia stood in the doorway, her gray streaked hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her office was small but bright, with a window overlooking a community garden. "Thanks for seeing me on short notice," Mia said, settling into the chair across from Patricia's desk. "You sounded different on the phone yesterday, more determined." Patricia's eyes were kind but observant. "What's changed?" Mia took a deep breath. "I think I'm ready to talk about what really happened with Evan. Not just the facts for court, but how it felt, how it still feels." Patricia nodded encouragingly. "That's a big step." "It wasn't always bad," Mia began, the words coming slowly at first. "That's what makes it so confusing. He could be so charming." Her voice faltered. "After the incidents?" Patricia suggested gently. "After he hurt me." Saying it plainly sent a jolt through Mia's body. "I need to stop using other words. He hurt me. Deliberately." Patricia nodded. "Language matters. It helps us face reality." "I kept thinking I could fix things, that if I was perfect enough, patient enough, he wouldn't get angry." Mia twisted her hands in her lap. "My mom died when I was in college. I think I was so afraid of being alone that I ignored the warning signs." But my mom would have hated seeing me like that. She was so strong, even when things were hard." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I feel like I disappointed her. Or maybe you were just trying to survive the best way you knew how at the time." The simple observation hit Mia with unexpected force. She had never thought of her choices that way, as survival rather than weakness. "Last night someone shared a story with me about regret," Mia said, carefully keeping Ray's identity private. "About not being there when someone needed them. It made me realize I've been blaming myself for what Evan did, just like this person blamed themselves for something that wasn't really their fault." Patricia leaned forward slightly. "That's an important insight." "I think I've been afraid to really feel angry," Mia continued. "Like if I let myself feel it, it might swallow me whole. Anger can be healthy when it's directed properly. It tells us when our boundaries have been violated. Mia nodded, a new clarity emerging. "I deserve better than what he did to me. It's just true." For the next 40 minutes, Mia spoke more openly than she ever had before. She described the isolation, the gradual erosion of her confidence, the moments of terror, and the exhausting vigilance. With each revelation, something inside her shifted, not dramatically, but steadily, like ice melting. "Our time is almost up," Patricia said eventually. "How are you feeling?" Mia took a moment to check in with herself. Raw, but also lighter somehow? "That's normal. Naming these experiences takes courage." As Mia gathered her things, Patricia added, "I have an opening next Thursday if you'd like to continue." For the first time, Mia didn't hesitate. "I'll be here." Stepping out into the morning sunshine, Mia paused on the sidewalk. Her chest still ached from the emotions she'd unleashed, but beneath the discomfort was something new, a quiet, steady certainty. She hadn't solved everything in one session, but she'd faced truths she'd been running from. And somehow, that felt like strength. The diner glowed like a lighthouse as evening settled over. Most of the dinner crowd had thinned out, leaving only a few regulars nursing cups of coffee and picking at slices of pie. Mia wiped down the counter with smooth, confident strokes, her movements more relaxed than they had been in weeks. Through the front window, she spotted Ray's motorcycle parked across the street. He hadn't come inside tonight, just remained a silent sentinel outside. It had become their unspoken routine. Him keeping watch, her acknowledging his presence with an occasional glance. But tonight felt different. The counseling session had shifted something inside her. When her shift ended at 8, Mia hung up her apron and told Doris good night. She stepped outside into the cool evening air, her breath forming small clouds as she crossed the street to where Ray leaned against his bike. "You don't have to stay out here in the cold," she said by way of greeting.
We have perfectly good coffee inside. The corners of Ray's mouth lifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Better view out here. Mia wrapped her jacket tighter around herself and leaned against the brick wall beside him. For a few moments, they just stood in comfortable silence, watching headlights pass on the main road. I went to see that counselor today, Mia finally said. The one the legal aid office recommended. Ray nodded but didn't interrupt. I've been so afraid of facing Evan in court. Her voice was steady now, not trembling like before when she spoke his name. Afraid he'd somehow twist things around, make me doubt myself again. A truck rumbled past, momentarily drowning out the quietness between them. When it passed, Mia continued. But I realized something. I'm not the same person I was when I left him. She turned to look at Ray directly. I'm not running anymore. I'm standing my ground. Ray studied her face, his eyes taking in the new determination in her expression. The hearing is next week, she said, and I'm ready. I don't mean I'm not nervous, I am. But I'm not afraid of him anymore. She took a deep breath. I used to think strength meant never showing weakness, never needing anyone. But that's not it at all, is it? Ray shifted his weight, considering her words. No, he said simply. It's about knowing your... Mia nodded. For so long, I believed what he told me, that I was nothing without him. But that was never true. She looked up at the stars beginning to appear overhead. My mom used to say that courage isn't about not feeling scared. It's about feeling scared and doing what needs to be done anyway. Your mother sounds like a wise woman, Ray said softly. She was. Mia smiled at the memory. I think she would have liked you. They fell silent again, but it was a comfortable silence. The kind shared between people who understand each other without needing... I want to thank you, Mia said finally. Not for saving me that night, but for giving me space to save myself. Ray looked down, almost embarrassed by her gratitude. You did all the hard work. Maybe, Mia acknowledged, but having someone believe in me, that mattered. A soft breeze stirred the air around them. Mia pushed herself away from the wall, straightening her shoulders. I should get home. Big day tomorrow, more prep with the legal aid lawyer. Ray nodded. You'll do fine. Mia took a few steps away, then paused and turned back. I mean it, Ray. I'm ready. Whatever happens in that courtroom, I know who I am now. And that's something Evan can never take away again. Ray watched her, his weathered face softening with something that looked like pride. He didn't say much. He never did. But his quiet nod spoke volumes. It wasn't approval she needed from him, and they both knew it. It was simply acknowledgement of the strength that had been there all along. Mia smiled, turned, and walked toward her apartment with steady, confident steps. Behind her, Ray remained by his motorcycle, a quiet guardian who understood that the greatest victory wasn't in the fight itself, but in her rediscovered ability to stand on her own. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall courthouse windows, casting long rectangles of light across the polished floor. Mia stood in the main hallway, her legal folder clutched tightly against her chest. Her navy blue blazer, borrowed from Doris for the occasion, felt stiff and formal. But she was grateful for how it made her look put together and serious. People hurried past her in all directions. Lawyers with briefcases, families huddled in worried circles, court officers directing traffic with practiced efficiency. The buzz of conversations echoed off the high ceilings, creating a constant hum that matched the nervous flutter in Mia's stomach. She checked her phone again in 8:42 a.m. Her hearing was scheduled for 9 o'clock. Room 307, she whispered to herself, rehearsing the information her legal aid advisor had given her. Third floor. Judge Wentworth. Mia scanned the crowded lobby again, looking for Ray's familiar silhouette. She hadn't explicitly asked him to come, but somehow she had expected him to be there. Over the past weeks, he had become a constant, reassuring presence in her life, never intrusive but always dependable. But today, there was no sign of him. Maybe he's already upstairs, she thought, trying to push down her disappointment. She headed toward the elevators, joining a cluster of people waiting with impatient expressions. When the doors finally opened, she squeezed inside, keeping her eyes fixed on the floor numbers lighting up one by one. The third floor was quieter than the lobby, with rows of wooden benches lining the wide hallway outside the courtrooms. Mia found room 307 and peered through the small window in the door. Inside, a hearing was still in progress. Several people sat on the benches nearby, presumably waiting their turn. Mia took a seat, placing her folder neatly on her lap. She pulled out her phone again and scrolled to Ray's number. Her finger hovered over the call button before she put the phone away. He knew what today was. If he wasn't here, he had his reasons. A young Carter? When Mia nodded, the woman continued. I'm Angela from Legal Aid. We spoke on the phone yesterday. Yes, thank you for meeting me, Mia said, rising to shake her hand. I just wanted to go over a few last-minute details before we go in. Angela sat beside her and began explaining what Mia should expect during the hearing. But Mia found herself only half listening, her eyes continually drifting to the elevator doors and stairwell entrance. With each new arrival, her heart jumped slightly, only to sink again when it wasn't Ray. Miss Carter? Are you with me? Angela's. I'm sorry, Mia said, refocusing. Yes, I understand. Stick to the facts, don't get emotional, and address the judge as Your Honor. Angela nodded. And remember, the restraining order is about documenting a pattern of behavior. The incident in the alley is important, but it's the history and your reasonable fear that the court needs to understand. Right. Mia took a deep breath. I'm ready. But was she? The confidence she'd felt last night seemed to waver. She hadn't realized how much she'd been counting on seeing Ray's steady presence. Not to speak for her or intervene, just to know someone who believed her was there. The courtroom doors opened, and several people filed out. A court officer stepped into the hallway with a clipboard. Carter versus Briggs? Mia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. Angela touched her arm gently. You got this. Mia stood, smoothing her borrowed blazer. One more glance down the hallway confirmed what she already knew. Ray wasn't coming. Whatever strength she needed today would have to come from within herself. As she followed Angela toward the courtroom doors, a memory surfaced, Ray's voice from one of their quiet conversations. Real strength isn't about having someone to lean on, he had said. It's about standing tall even when there's no one there. Was this what he had meant all along? Had he stayed away deliberately? The heavy wooden doors loomed before her. Through them, she caught a glimpse of Evan sitting at a table with his attorney. He looked different in his suit, smaller somehow, less intimidating than the shadow that had haunted her thoughts for so long. All rise, came the court officer's voice from inside. Mia took a final deep breath and stepped through the doorway. Today, she would face her past alone. And somehow, that felt exactly right. State your name for the record, please. Mia's mouth felt dry as paper. Mia Louise Carter, she said, her voice barely carrying across the courtroom. Please speak up, the judge prompted, not unkindly. Mia Louise Carter, she repeated, louder this time. The courtroom felt impossibly large. Everything gleamed with polished wood and authority. The judge's bench elevated above the floor, the American flag standing crisp and formal, the court reporter's fingers poised over her stenotype machine. Directly across from her witness stand sat Evan, looking unnaturally composed in a blue suit that matched his eyes. Those eyes, once so charming, now watched her with cold calculation. The legal aid attorney, Angela, gave Mia a reassuring nod. Ms. Carter, can you tell the court about your relationship with Mr. Briggs? Mia's hands trembled in her lap. She twisted them together, hoping no one would notice. "We dated for almost 2 years," she began, her voice wavering. "We met at a coffee shop where I used to work before the diner." "And when did the relationship end?" 3 months ago. I moved out while he was at work." As soon as the words left her mouth, she saw Evan's jaw tighten. The familiar knot of fear formed in her stomach. "Why did you leave that way?" Angela asked. Mia swallowed hard. "I was afraid of how he might react if I told him face to face." "Objection. Speculation," Evan's attorney interrupted. "I'll rephrase," Angela said smoothly. "Ms. Carter, can you describe specific incidents that made you afraid?" This was the hardest part, laying out the pattern, piece by humiliating piece. Mia's voice quavered as she recounted how things had started small, Evan checking her phone, questioning her about male customers who left tips, telling her what to wear, how it escalated to him throwing things when angry, punching walls beside her head, grabbing her arms hard enough to leave bruises. "He said it wasn't abuse if he didn't hit me," Mia said, staring at her hands. But I started feeling like I was disappearing. Each word felt like pulling a splinter from deep under her skin. Painful, but necessary. She could feel Evan's stare burning into her, silently calling her a liar with every sentence she spoke. "And what happened the night of April 17th behind the diner?" Angela asked. Mia described the confrontation in the alley. Evan grabbing her, threatening her, eventually striking her. As she spoke, she caught sight of his face. He was smiling faintly, as if they shared a private joke. The same smile he'd give her after making her cry, right before apologizing with flowers and promises. Something shifted inside her. "Ms. Carter?" Angela prompted when Mia fell silent. Mia straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Evan for the first time. "He hit me that night." But the look in his eyes before he did it? That's what I remember most. Like he enjoyed seeing me scared. Her voice grew steadier. The tremor in her hands stilled. "That night wasn't the worst thing he did to me," Mia continued, her words clear, making me think being loved meant being controlled. The judge was watching her with undivided attention. Evan's smirk had faded. After I left him, he kept texting me, calling from different numbers when I blocked him, showing up at places he knew I'd be. Mia's voice remained level as she detailed each incident. The night at the diner wasn't random. He'd been watching, waiting for me to be alone. Angela presented printouts of text messages as evidence. Mia identified them one by one, reading the escalating threats aloud without flinching. Words that once terrorized her now seemed smaller somehow, just desperate attempts to regain control. "And how do these ongoing contacts make you feel, Miss Carter?" Angela asked. Mia took a deep breath. "They make me afraid, but not the way they used to. I'm not afraid of who I am anymore. I'm afraid because I know what he's capable of when he doesn't get his way." She looked directly at the judge now, her voice strong and clear. "I'm not asking for this restraining order because I'm weak. I'm asking for it because I'm finally strong enough to say, enough." In that moment, Mia realized she wasn't searching the courtroom for Ray anymore. The voice she'd found was entirely her own. The hallway outside the courtroom felt too bright after the dim interior. Mia sat on a polished wooden bench, her back straight despite the exhaustion pulling at her limbs. The morning's testimony had drained her completely, leaving her hollow inside. Her navy blue blouse stuck to her skin where nervous sweat had dried. The courtroom clock had shown 11,042 when she'd finished speaking, and now, an hour later, the waiting seemed endless. Angela, the legal aid attorney, sat beside her reviewing notes, occasionally offering reassuring smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. The lawyer's professional mask couldn't completely hide her own tension. "You did really well in there," Angela said, closing her folder. Mia nodded, her throat still raw from speaking. "How long until we know?" The judge took a brief recess. "It could be any minute now." Angela checked her watch. "Do you want some water?" "No, thanks." Mia rubbed her palms against her skirt. The fabric felt rough under her fingertips, grounding her. Strange how small sensations could anchor you when everything else felt unsteady. Her phone buzzed with a text from Doris. "How's it going? We're all pulling for you." The simple message brought unexpected tears to Mia's eyes. The diner staff had become her makeshift family these past months. 2 doors down, Evan sat with his attorney. Mia could see his profile. Jaw clenched, shoulders rigid. Even now, he looked more angry than worried. Some small, irrational part of her still expected him to burst through the doors and drag her away before the judge could decide. She closed her eyes and rested her head against the wall. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like trapped insects. Her testimony played on repeat in her mind. Had she said enough? Too much? The right things? Mia had spent so many nights rehearsing her words, practicing them in her bathroom mirror, whispering them into her pillow. But nothing had prepared her for looking directly at Evan while describing what he'd done to her. The flash of rage in his eyes when she spoke about the night in the alley had nearly stopped her words. But she pushed through. The image of Ray's empty seat in the courtroom gallery floated to the surface of her thoughts. She'd scanned the rows of benches at least a dozen times, hoping to catch a glimpse of his weathered face or broad shoulders. Every time the door opened, her heart had leapt, only to sink again when strangers entered. It shouldn't matter. She'd done this herself, found her own voice. Yet his absence felt like a small betrayal. "All rise." The bailiff's voice rang out from the reopened courtroom door. Angela touched Mia's arm gently. "It's time." The walk back to the plane. Mia's legs felt wooden, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. She focused on putting one foot in front of the other, avoiding Evan's gaze as he took his position across the aisle. The judge, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes and a firm mouth, shuffled her papers one final time before looking up. "Having reviewed the evidence presented and the testimony given, I find sufficient cause to grant the restraining order." Her voice carried the weight of authority. "Mr. Briggs is to maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Ms. Carter's person, residence, and workplace. No contact through any means, physical, electronic, or through third parties will be permitted." Mia heard Angela's whispered, "Yes," beside her, but she couldn't move. Relief washed over her in a wave that left her dizzy. The judge continued, addressing specific terms and durations, but the words blurred together. Mia watched Evan's face darken with each pronouncement. When the gavel finally came down, he stood abruptly, ignoring his attorney's restraining hand, and stormed from the courtroom. It was over. She had won. So why did victory feel so hollow? Outside the courtroom, Angela shook her hand warmly. "Congratulations, Mia. The judge rarely grants such comprehensive orders on first hearing. Your testimony really made the difference." Mia nodded, attempting a smile that didn't quite form. "Thank you for everything." As Angela packed her briefcase, Mia scanned the courthouse hallway one last time. No leather jacket. No quiet presence leaning against a wall. Nothing but strangers hurrying to their own appointments with justice. She had faced her greatest fear alone, and survived. That knowledge, instead, she felt a bone-deep weariness and a strange sense of loss. The absence beside her felt almost physical, a ray-shaped emptiness where support should have been. The apartment door clicked shut behind Mia, the sound echoing in the empty space. She stood in the dim entryway, her court clothes suddenly feeling like a costume she couldn't wait to shed. The restraining order papers sat heavy in her purse, their legal weight both a shield and a reminder. She'd won. She was safe now. Officially, legally safe. She should feel triumphant. Anything but this hollow ache spreading through her chest. Mia dropped her keys in the small ceramic dish by the door, a bright yellow thing her mother had made years ago in a pottery class. The memory of Lillian's proud smile when she'd presented it made Mia's throat tighten.
I did it, Mon, she whispered to the empty apartment. I stood up for myself. She moved to the kitchen on autopilot, filling a glass with water. Her hand trembled, water sloshing over the rim and onto her fingers. The cool liquid startled her, breaking through the numbness that had carried her from the courthouse to the bus stop to home. The living room window cast long afternoon shadows across the worn carpet. Mia sank onto the couch, still in her navy blouse and gray skirt, and stared at the blank television screen. Her reflection looked back at her. A ghost of herself, hollow-eyed and stiff. And then it hit her all at once. The first sob came without warning, bursting from her chest like something alive. She pressed her hand against her mouth, trying to hold it back, but another followed, and another. Her shoulders shook with the force of them. Tears streamed down her face, smearing the mascara she'd applied so carefully this morning. Why? The word escaped between sobs, directed at no one and everyone. Why had Evan hurt her? Why had she stayed so long? Why had she finally found the courage to leave? Why had Ray abandoned her today of all days? Mia curled onto her side, drawing her knees up as she gave herself permission to fall apart completely. All the strength she'd gathered to walk into that courtroom, all the careful composure she'd maintained while describing the abuse. It dissolved into heaving sobs that left her gasping for breath. The apartment absorbed her cries, walls that had witnessed so many silent nights of fear, now witnesses to this storm of release. She cried until her throat hurt, until her eyes burned, until the navy blouse was spotted dark with tears. When the storm finally passed, leaving her hiccuping and drained, the room had grown darker. She hadn't bothered turning on any lights. The twilight suited her mood, caught between day and night, victory and loss. Mia finally pushed herself upright, wiping her face with her sleeve. The makeup came away in dark smudges. Her hair had fallen from its careful bun, hanging in limp strands around her face. Get it together? She told herself, her voice raspy from crying. You did this. You won. She changed into sweatpants and an old t-shirt, washed her face, and made herself a cup of tea. The routine tasks helped steady her, but couldn't fill the empty space inside. Where had Ray been? The question circled her thoughts like a persistent bird. After weeks of quiet support, of being a steady presence just when she needed one, he had vanished on the most important day. Mia carried her tea to the window, looking out at the darkening street below. A motorcycle roared past. Not Ray's, but the sound made her chest tighten anyway. Had she misunderstood everything? Had his interest in her well-being been exaggerated in her mind? Maybe his debt to her mother had been repaid in his eyes. Maybe he'd decided she wasn't worth the trouble. Or maybe he'd never really cared at all. Just another man making promises he wouldn't keep. The thought sent a fresh wave of hurt through her. She'd started to trust him, to see in his quiet strength something different from Evan's controlling nature. She'd begun to believe there were good men in the world after all. Stupid, she whispered, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. So stupid. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, small islands of light in the growing darkness. Mia stood at the window, tea growing cold in her hands, wondering if she'd imagined the connection between them, if Ray had ever truly. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, waking Mia from a restless sleep. Her eyes felt puffy and raw from crying. She blinked at the ceiling, momentarily disoriented before remembering yesterday's court hearing, the victory, and Ray's absence. She pushed herself up, wincing at her stiff muscles. Part of her wanted to call in sick, to pull the covers back over her head and hide from the world. But that wasn't who she was anymore. One foot in front of the other, she murmured, her mother's favorite saying when things got tough. The shower helped wash away some of yesterday's heaviness. As water cascaded over her shoulders, Mia tried to focus on the positives. Evan couldn't legally come near her now. She had stood up for herself. She had won. So why did it still feel like something important was missing?
Mia dressed in her waitress uniform. Black pants, white shirt, blue apron, and pulled her hair into a simple ponytail. She applied concealer under her eyes, trying to hide the evidence of her breakdown. The woman in the mirror looked tired, but determined. It would have to do. The walk to the diner took 15 minutes, the same as always. Mia kept her head up, taking in the neighborhood with new eyes. For months, she'd walked these streets looking over her shoulder, worried about running into Evan. Today, she didn't need to. The freedom felt strange, almost uncomfortable, like new shoes that hadn't been broken in yet. The familiar bell chimed as she pushed open the diner door. The smell of coffee and bacon wrapped around her like a warm blanket. "Well, look who's here," Doris called from behind the counter, spatula in hand. "How'd it go yesterday, honey?" Mia managed a small smile as she tied on her apron. "It went well." "I got the restraining order." Doris put down her spatula and came around the counter, pulling Mia into a tight hug that smelled of coffee and hairspray. "I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you." The simple words of support made Mia's eyes sting with fresh tears. She blinked them back, patting Doris's arm. "Thanks. I just want to get back to normal now." "Normal, huh?" Doris pulled back, studying Mia's face with knowing eyes. "Well, normal starts with tables 3 and 5, needing coffee refills." Grateful for the familiar routine of taking orders, serving food, and making small talk with regulars helped ground her. She moved through the morning rush on autopilot, her body remembering what to do even as her mind wandered. Around noon, the lunch crowd began to thin, leaving just a few tables occupied. Mia wiped down an empty booth, her movements mechanical. "You okay, kiddo?" Frank, the cook, asked as she passed the service window. "You've been quiet today." "I'm fine," Mia answered automatically. Then, reconsidering, "Just tired. Yesterday was a lot." "Well, you take it easy. Rome wasn't built in a day." Mia appreciated the sentiment, even if it wasn't quite right. This wasn't about building something new, but about reclaiming pieces of herself that had been stolen away. During her afternoon break, she sat at the counter with a cup of tea, staring out the front window at the passing traffic. The sky had clouded over, matching her mood. A few raindrops hit the glass, racing each other down to the sill. "Your biker friend hasn't been around today," Doris commented, sliding onto the stool beside her. "Usually he's parked across the street by now." Mia's heart gave an unwelcome lurch. "He's not my friend," she said, more sharply than intended. Doris raised an eyebrow. "Could have fooled me. The way he watches out for this place, for you." Mia stared into her tea. "Well, he wasn't watching out yesterday when I needed." She stopped herself. "It doesn't matter." Doris hummed noncommittally. Men are strange creatures, even the good ones. The afternoon dragged on. Mia moved between tables, taking orders and clearing dishes, her smile becoming more. She caught herself glancing out the window more often than necessary, checking the street corner where Ray usually parked his motorcycle. Just after 5 o'clock, as Mia was refilling the napkin dispensers, she happened to look up through the front window. Her hands froze mid-motion. Across the street, partially obscured by a parked car, stood a familiar figure. Ray leaned against his motorcycle, his attention seemingly focused on the diner. Even from this distance, Mia could make out his broad shoulders and the distinctive leather vest. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a confused mix of anger, relief, and something else she couldn't name, washing over her. Ray was back. Mia's hands trembled as she untied her apron. She tossed it onto the counter, ignoring Doris's questioning look. "I'm taking my break now," she called over her shoulder, already pushing through the diner door. The afternoon air felt heavy with approaching rain as Mia crossed the street. Her footsteps quickened with each passing car, her emotions building like a summer storm. Ray didn't move as she approached, just watched her with those steady eyes that always seemed to see right through her. "You weren't there," Mia said when she reached in. No hello, no preamble, just the raw truth that had been eating at her since yesterday. Ray's weathered face remained calm. No, I wasn't. I looked for you. The words came out smaller than she intended, revealing more vulnerability than she wanted to show. Mia crossed her arms over her chest, protecting herself from the answer she might get. Why? He shifted his weight, his gaze never leaving. Because you didn't need me there. That wasn't your choice to make. Anger sparked in her chest, replacing the hurt. I stood up in that courtroom and told my story with everyone staring at me. Evan was there with his smug lawyer, and I kept thinking someone was in my corner, but the seat was empty. A truck rumbled past, temporarily drowning out the possibility of response. In the pause, Mia studied Ray's face, looking for signs of guilt or regret. She found neither. I thought. Mia's voice caught. She swallowed hard before continuing, that you actually cared about your promise to my mom. But when it really mattered, you disappeared just like everyone else. Rain began to fall, light drops speckling the pavement between them. Neither moved to find shelter. I was there, Ray finally said, his voice low and rough. Mia blinked. What? At the courthouse. I was there. He straightened up from his motorcycle, his tall frame casting a shadow despite the cloudy day. Parked 3 blocks away. Walked to the back entrance. Sat in the last row. The revelation struck. Ray reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a court program with yesterday's date. I heard every word you said, saw you stand up to him. Watched you win. Confusion replaced Mia's anger. I don't understand. If you were there, why hide? Why let me think I was alone? The rain fell harder now, drops rolling down Mia's cheeks like the tears she refused to shed. Ray seemed to consider his words carefully before speaking. When Lillian, your mother, helped me years ago, she didn't do the work for me. She showed me I had to save myself. If I'd been sitting there where you could see me, you might have leaned on me, looked to me for strength. And that would have been so terrible? Mia demanded. No. Ray shook his head slowly. But it wouldn't have shown you what you needed to see. Which was what? That you don't need anyone to stand up for you anymore. That you're strong enough on your own. His voice dropped lower. I wasn't staying away because I didn't care. I was staying back because I believed in you. The words hung between them as the rain increased, neither of them moving to escape it. Mia felt something shift inside her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding beginning to take root. You should have told me, she said finally, her voice steadier. Would you have believed in yourself the same way if you knew I was there as backup? Ray asked. Mia paused, considering. The truth was, she probably would have drawn comfort from his presence, might have looked to him for reassurance when her voice shook. Instead, she'd found that strength within herself. You still should have told me, she repeated, but the heat had gone out of her words. Ray nodded once, acknowledging her point without argument. You're right, and I'm telling you now. I saw who you are yesterday, who you've always been underneath the fear, and I'm proud of you. The simple words touched something deep inside Mia, a place that had been aching for recognition. Not praise for being brave, but acknowledgement that the courage had always been there. Your mother would be proud too, Ray added quietly. The rain fell steadily now, soaking through Mia's diner uniform. She didn't move to find shelter. Something about standing in the rain felt right, like it was washing away the last 24 hours of hurt and confusion. I kept thinking you abandoned me, Mia said, her voice softer now. That when things got real, you walked away. Ray remained still, raindrops rolling down his leather jacket. I understand why you thought that. Mia pushed her wet hair from her face. Her anger was fading, replaced by something more complicated. She thought about what it meant that he had been there, after all. Not where she could see him, but watching, believing. You could have just told me your plan, she said. Maybe I should have, Ray admitted. But I wasn't sure you'd stand as tall if you knew I was there to catch you. A car drove by, splashing water from the gutter. Mia stepped back, considering his words. There was truth in what he said, even if she didn't want to admit it. How many times in her life had she looked for someone else to lean on? With Evan, she'd given away pieces of herself bit by bit, trading her independence for what she thought was love. When I was up there, Mia said, telling my story to the judge, I kept waiting to feel scared. I kept thinking I'd freeze, or my voice would give out. She wrapped her arms around herself, remembering. But then this strange thing happened. The more I spoke, the stronger I felt. Like each word was giving something back to me that I'd lost. Ray nodded, his eyes reflecting understanding. I'm not saying what you did was right, Mia continued. It hurt to think you weren't there. I know. But... Mia hesitated, searching for the right words. I see what you were trying to do. You weren't abandoning me. You were giving me space to find my own voice. The rain began to ease, the heavy drops turning to a gentle mist. Around them, the world seemed quieter, as if pausing to let this moment unfold. My whole life, Mia said, people have either controlled me or tried to save me. My dad left when I was little. My mom protected me until she couldn't anymore. Evan. She swallowed hard. Evan made me believe I needed him to survive. Ray listened silently, his steady presence encouraging her to continue. But you didn't do either of those things, Mia realized aloud. You never needed saving, Ray said simply. You just needed to remember who you are. Mia felt something release in her chest, a knot of tension she hadn't realized she was carrying. For the first time since the courthouse, since even before that, she took a deep breath that didn't hurt. When my mom was sick, she said quietly, she told me I was stronger than I knew. I didn't believe her then. Mia looked up at Ray, really seeing him now, not as a mysterious protector or a disappointment, but as someone who had kept a promise in his own way. I think I'm starting to understand what she meant. The rain had stopped entirely now, leaving the world washed clean. A weak sunbeam broke through the clouds, glinting off the puddles around them. Thank you, Mia said finally. Ray looked slightly surprised. For what? For not saving me. Mia smiled slightly, the expression feeling strange but right on her face. For helping me find my own strength instead. The morning sun slanted through the blinds, casting warm bars of light across Mia's kitchen table. She sat with both hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee, watching the steam rise. The weight that had pressed against her chest for so long had lifted. She glanced at the clock. 8:30 a.m. She had somewhere to be by 9. Mia chose her clothes carefully. Simple jeans and a blue blouse that her mother had given her for her 21st birthday. Nothing fancy, but it made her feel put together. Strong. You can do this, she told her reflection in the bathroom mirror. It wasn't just empty words anymore. She believed it. The Women's Resource Center occupied a modest brick building downtown, its entrance marked by a bright... Mia had passed it countless times without giving it much thought. Now, as she stood on the sidewalk in front of it, her heart fluttered with uncertainty. First time here? Mia turned to see a woman about her age unlocking the door. Her name tag read, Angela, Volunteer Coordinator. Is it that obvious? Mia asked. Angela smiled. Everyone looks a little scared their first time, but trust me, we don't bite. Inside, the center was warm and welcoming. Posters with empowering messages lined the walls. A small reception area led to several doors. Counseling rooms, A coffee pot burbled in the corner next to a bookshelf filled with self-help titles and memoirs. So you called about volunteering? Angela asked, leading her to a small office. Yes, Mia said, settling into a chair. I'm not sure what I can offer, but I want to help. Angela's eyes were kind but searching. Most of our volunteers have been through something themselves. It helps them connect with the women who come here. Mia nodded slowly. I left an abusive relationship 6 months ago. Last week, I won a restraining order against him. That takes incredible courage, Angela said. It didn't feel like courage at the time. It felt like survival. That's how it always starts. Angela passed her a form. We have different volunteer positions, answering phones, helping with paperwork, sitting with women while they wait for counseling. Some experienced volunteers eventually become peer mentors. Mia looked down at the form, imagining herself in those roles. I'd like to start with something simple. Maybe helping at the front desk? Perfect. We need someone for Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Can you do a training session today? By noon, Mia had learned the basics: how to answer calls, schedule appointments, and most importantly, how to greet women who walked in with that same scared look she'd had on her own face months ago. Sometimes, Angela explained, just seeing someone who understands can make all the difference. Mia was arranging pamphlets when a young woman entered, clutching her purse like a shield. Her eyes darted around the room before settling on Mia. I don't have an appointment, the woman whispered. My friend said I should come. Mia recognized the tremor in her voice, the way she couldn't quite make eye contact. She remembered standing in an attorney's office, struggling to say Evan's name out loud. You're in the right place, Mia said gently. Would you like some coffee while we get you checked in? The woman, Lisa, she eventually said, sat in the waiting area, her hands wrapped around a mug just like Mia had done that morning. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, Lisa confessed. He says he's sorry. Maybe this time he means it. Mia sat beside her. Can I tell you something? Something I wish someone had told me? Lisa nodded. For years, I believed I wasn't strong enough to stand on my own. I thought I needed someone else to protect me, to make decisions for me. But that's not strength, it's dependence. Mia paused, finding the words as she spoke then. Real strength comes when you trust yourself enough to walk away, even when it's terrifying. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. I'm so scared. I know, I was too. Mia smiled softly. But look at me now. I made it through, and you will too. As she spoke those words, Mia realized the scared girl in the alley that night seemed like a different person now. Someone she understood and honored, but no longer who she was. The dinner rush at Hal's Diner had finally tapered off. Mia wiped down the last table, her movements relaxed and confident. She hummed quietly to herself, a habit that had recently returned after months of silence. Someone's in a good mood tonight, Doris commented, counting her tips at the register. The older waitress's eyes crinkled with a knowing smile. I started volunteering at the Women's Center today, Mia said, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. It felt right. Good for you, honey. Doris nodded approvingly. You've changed these past few weeks. Got a different air about you. Mia smiled, recognizing the truth in Doris's words. She felt different, lighter somehow, as if she'd set down a heavy burden she'd been carrying for years. Her shoulders no longer hunched forward. Her eyes met customers' gazes directly instead of darting away. The bell over the door chimed, and a late customer walked in. Mia glanced up, her body tensing automatically. An old habit. We've got one slice of cherry left, she called to him. Your lucky night. You're an angel, Mia, the old man said, settling into his regular booth. As Mia served him, she caught her reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser cheeks, flushed with healthy color, eyes clear and steady. She barely recognized herself. Doris, remember when I first started here? Mia asked, returning to the counter. Sure do. Skinny little thing, jumping at shadows. Doris lowered her voice. Scared to death when men raised their voices ordering. Look at you now. Every day felt like like I was walking on broken glass.
But you did make it, Doris said simply. And you did it yourself.
Mia thought about Ray, about his deliberate absence at the courthouse. At first it had felt like betrayal. Now she understood it as perhaps the greatest kindness anyone had ever shown her, believing in her strength before she believed in it herself. The rest of her shift passed quickly. Mr. Peterson left, leaving a generous tip. Doris headed out shortly after, pulling on her worn cardigan.
You want me to wait while you lock up?
She asked, as Mia shook her head.
I've got it. Good night, Doris.
Alone in the diner, Mia completed her closing routine. She refilled salt shakers, wiped down the counters one last time, and counted out the register. Every task felt purposeful now, not just motions to get through another day. She thought about Lisa from the Women's Center, wondering if she'd come back tomorrow. Mia hoped so. She'd recognized herself in the woman's hunched shoulders and downcast eyes. Maybe someday Lisa would stand tall too. After switching off the lights, Mia grabbed her jacket and purse from the back. The night air greeted her with a gentle coolness as she stepped out the back door into the same alley where everything had changed, where Evan had cornered her, where Ray had appeared like some unlikely guardian angel. Mia paused, letting her eyes adjust to the darkness. The alley no longer felt threatening. It was just a space, brick walls, a dumpster, the faint smell of grease from the kitchen vents. Nothing to fear. She walked confidently toward the street, keys held casually in her hand rather than clutched between her fingers as a weapon. The night sounds, distant traffic, the hum of street lights, music drifting from an apartment window, wrapped around her like a familiar blanket. As she reached the sidewalk, a low rumble caught her attention. Across the street, partially hidden in shadow, sat a motorcycle. Ray. He didn't approach, didn't call out, just sat there, a quiet presence in the darkness. Mia lifted her hand in acknowledgement. Not a plea for help or protection, just recognition. One person seeing another. Ray nodded once, the gesture. Mia turned and walked toward her apartment, her steps sure and steady. She didn't look back, but she heard the sound of Ray's motorcycle growing fainter as he rode away into the night.